this stage, let us look at the basic variables in a study. We have the independent variables, we have the dependent variable. Let me begin with the dependent variable. The dependent variables seek to measure and observe. In other words, it is the problem of the study that you want to investigate. That problem that is motivating you to go into the research is actually the dependent variable. 2, affected by changes from the independent variables or other factors being studied. For example, let us look at this topic. In a study that is interested in understanding the effect of a new drug on blood pressure, the blood pressure will be the dependent variable. Researchers would measure how blood pressure changes in response to administering the drug. So in other words, administering the drug would be the independent variable, while blood pressure is the dependent variable here, because administering drug is the effect that you want to bring to change the blood pressure. Note, it is essential to define and operationalize the dependent variable carefully to ensure that it is measurable and relevant to the research question. Let us look at the independent variable. The independent variable is the variable that you examine to determine its influence on the dependent variable in a research study. It is a key component in experimental research study. For example, if you are conducting a study to investigate the effect of different amount of fertilizer on plant growth, the independent variable would be the amount of fertilizer applied. The dependent variable would be plant's growth. It can also be decomposed into height or number of leaves. So in this case, the dependent variable, it's what you are measuring to see how it is affected by the different levels of fertilizer application. Now you can look at this, you will see that the fertilizer application was decomposed into 3: no fertilizer, low fertilizer, high fertilizer. So it depends on how you want to structure your research. Developing a robust research. So this is where the use of research model is important. I love using research models a lot because it helps me to understand the direction of my research and the focus of the research. So let us look at the topic, the effect of different amount of fertilizer on plant growth. So if you look at here, you can see that plant growth is the dependent variable. The independent variable here is the different amounts of fertilizer. And then you can see that the direct line from the independent variable, which is the amount of fertilizer, goes directly to the plant growth. So it shows one linear relationship. So you can apply a linear regression analysis here to learn the effect of different amount of fertilizer on plant growth. In this case, you can see that this direct line here shows you one research question, one research objective, and then one hypothesis. But again, if I decompose the plant growth, I can decompose it to look at it from the perspective of stress resistance, number of leaves, fruit production, optimal pH, and the height of the plant. And now you can see the independent variable here, which is the different amount of fertilizer. We want to look at how it influences the constructs, the multidimensional constructs of plant growth. That means that every line that comes from the independent variable, which is the different amounts of fertilizer, to the construct of plant growth, will form a specific objective and specific research question. That is the implication of the model 2 here. So you can see now I have my research questions into 5, equal to 5, which means the each of the lines from the independent variable to the 5 dependent variables. So I can decompose the independent variable, which is the amount of fertilizer application, into 5 constructs, which may be no fertilizer application, low quantity of fertilizer application, average quantity of fertilizer application, high quantity of fertilizer application, fertilizer plus compost manure application. So I now want to see how each of these 5 dimensions or constructs of fertilizer application influences plant growth. So in this case, I do not want to decompose plant growth. I only want to decompose the independent variable. So in this case, I still have 5 research questions, 5 specific objectives, and 5 hypotheses. This is how you make your research robust instead of having just a single linear relationship in your research. Still on this same topic, the effect of different amount of fertilizer on plant growth. So if you look at this model now, you can see that I have decomposed the independent variable and the dependent variable into 5. So here I have a very robust research data analysis to perform. Here I have the 5 constructs of amount of fertilizer application regressing the 5 constructs of plant growth. So I have a total of 25 research questions, 25 specific objectives. I have 25 research hypotheses. So this is how you can decompose your variables to make your research more robust. Now let us look at the intermediate and conditional variables in this study. First, I have the mediator variable by the left side. The mediator variable is an intermediate variable that lies in the causal pathway between the independent variable, example, amount of fertilizer used, remember, and the dependent variable, example, the plant growth. B, it could help explain how and why the amount of fertilizer affects plant growth. In the context of fertilizer use and plant growth, a potential mediator variable could be the nutrient content in the soil. So I gave a note here and I said, if found statistically significant, it may be interpreted to mean that while the effect of fertilizer use influences plant growth, it increased the nutrient levels in the soil, and it's these nutrient levels that in turn affected the plant growth, in bracket, the dependent variable. The mediator is the intermediate variable. It is that variable that stands in between the independent and the dependent variable. In course of this tutorial, we'll get to see a typical example. Okay, so let us look at the moderator, the conditional variables. And I said, note, your idea here is that the relationship between the amount of fertilizer used and plant growth may vary depending on the type of plant species. Thus, the plant species will likely be a moderator variable here. So a moderator variable helps you to understand under what conditions or for which group the relationship between the independent variable and the dependent variable is stronger, weaker, or different. So the moderating variable helps you to understand whether the influence of variable A or variable B can be strengthened or weakened by another variable. So you want to find out whether some plant species might be more responsive to fertilizer while others may have different growth patterns regardless of amount of fertilizer applied. So that is the concept of the moderator here. So let us look at this topic for example. The effect of fertilizer use on plant growth, the mediating role of nutrient content in the soil. So in this case, we want to see how the nutrient content in the soil can mediate the effect of each of these constructs of fertilizer use on the plant growth. So you can see the line from the independent variables, the 5 constructs of fertilizer use, to the dependent variable plant growth. And then you can also see the path from the independent variable to the mediator, and from the mediator to the dependent variable, the plant growth. So the concept of mediation, according to Baron and Kenny 1986, states clearly for a mediation to take place, the independent variable should be able to predict the dependent variable, and the independent variable also should be able to predict the mediator variable, and then the mediator variable should be able to predict the dependent variable. So when the path from the independent variable to the dependent variable is statistically significant, and the path from the independent variable to the mediator variable is statistically significant, and the path from the mediator to the dependent variable is statistically significant, then a mediation is said to have taken place in your research. So here we will have a robust research questions to ask. So this is how you can make your work more robust using a research model like this. The next part is to present the moderator variable. So let us look at this title: the impact of fertilizer use on plant growth, the moderating role of plant species. So in this case, still decomposed, the independent variable here, you can see the moderator variable is the plant species. So we want to see, can the plant species moderate the specific effects of the construct of fertilizer application on plant use? That's exactly what this model is talking about. So this is how you can decompose your variables, introduce conditional variables to make your work robust.